Dozens of protesters gathered outside Westminster Magistrates Court as the trial of Marieha Hussain, a 37-year-old British Asian woman, began. Hussain faces charges of a racially aggravated hate crime after holding up a satirical placard at a pro-Palestinian protest last November about then Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and former Home Secretary Suella Braverman. Supporters argue that Hussain's placard is a form of political satire, criticizing Sunak and Braverman for policies seen as harmful to minority communities.
Her arrest, like mine, came just days after the then Home Secretary Suella Braverman had criticised the Metropolitan's policing of our pro-Palestinian protests. And in response to that, the Police Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, said, "We will be clamping down, we are going to be ruthless, and you will see many, many more arrests." There's been a report that has been conducted about the arrests that took place between the middle of October and the end of March this year about the arrests, and almost half of the people that were arrested, it led to no further action, which was the case with me. This is a complete waste of public funds. It's a complete waste of time and energy and effort, and it is a deliberate, targeted effort by the authorities to deter us and to intimidate us because we are calling out their complicity. This is about, again, choosing when to apply the laws. And when you there is a consistent pattern of applying the laws when it is about black and brown people and not when it is about majority white population. So we had a professor here today. He is the only professor of black studies in Europe, Dr. Kahinti Andrews, and he was saying, and he has said publicly, this is political satire, this is political critique, it is legitimate, it is about her fundamental right to freedom of expression. Satire and satire towards those in power is a long-standing British tradition that goes back centuries, and it is protected. It is protected speech. She's being targeted because she falls into that bracket of protesters that were being demonised and vilified by politicians and mainstream media alike.
It's very important for me to be present in the court and the protest, both because I fully support the Palestine people against genocide, and because a friend of mine is also being charged with a similar offence. Angela Fides from Harlow, where, well, I could go into the details, but she is being charged with a similar offence, so it's very important we understand exactly what's going on.
The case has sparked debate about free speech, racial identity, and whether such intra-racial critiques cross into hate speech.
Marieha Hussain was protesting in November alongside thousands of other people with many other different types of placards, many using different types of satire, language, which Britain is famous or infamous around the world for its literature, its publication, its freedom of expression, and indeed prides itself on the freedom of expression that is criminalized elsewhere. So the fact that Marieha Hussain is being criminalized literally is in court today as we speak, because she held a placard that depicted, at least in part of it, two politicians alongside coconuts. It didn't even say they were coconuts. It was an imagery depiction from which a person can make assumptions of which one is that the politicians actually are coconuts.
Do you think that perhaps there should be boundaries for satire when criticizing public figures and politicians? Where should those boundaries be drawn?
Well, I don't think if they need to be drawn, in this particular instance, not by the police, not by the criminal justice process. We're in a society where open debate is encouraged. Well, then let's have the debate. Why are these politicians being depicted as coconuts? Because of the genocide that they are arming. They are literally involved in arming a genocide. The biggest evidence for that is that just this month, the Labour government cancelled or suspended the license of 30 licenses for arms that go to Israel, meaning that they are at least fearful that Britain could be accused for arming a country involved in severe and serious humanitarian war crimes. So That's the context should always be around what is this about?
How would you differentiate between satire and hate speech?
Well, first of all, there is no speech. Marieha Hussain didn't actually say anything, so there is no speech. It's about the expression of that satire. Is that imagery? Are those drawings? Are the coconuts themselves? Because that's here. The question is that this case is about the coconuts, literally. And when you start talking about that, it actually sounds ludicrous and ridiculous that Britain is having a big debate now about coconuts. In one protest that several of my colleagues from Cage were involved in regarding Marieha Hussain, some of them were detained by the police, and other things that they took into custody were literal coconuts. And it became a laughing stock outside the police station in Hammersmith. Please at least free our coconuts. In the BBC at the moment has a satirical program, a show called Coconut, in which a largely Asian group of characters play people who behave in what most people would describe as coconuts. And that's happening as we speak. So how do you prosecute, on the one hand, an individual, a pregnant lady, who's forced, after 6 months of investigation, to leave her job, to relocate her home, given hostile interviews, changes her son's school, and is due to give birth while she's at court, or just before she goes to court. So how is it that possible? What kind of a double standard is happening? It's hard to understand. We hope and feel that not just justice, but that common sense also will prevail, because the opposite side is that if she's found guilty, a precedent will be set, which will further undermine and erode already eroded civil liberties at a period of time where all sides of the argument are getting frustrated by interventions of police, where there should be none, where it should be a conversation. And most importantly, remember the laws now that are being applied to people of color, like brown and black people. These laws were originally created to protect us, not to prosecute us. And that included those who'd sided with our oppressors, who essentially are racists. That's what it comes down to. Islamophobia is a manifestation of racism in the 21st century in the UK, because just ask any white person who becomes a Muslim and displays Islamic garb, they will be treated just as bad as any brown or dark-skinned or black Muslim. So this is in addition, and furthermore, it goes back in court. It was revealed that Harry's Place, which is a known Islamophobic pro-Zionist organization who we've encountered, they are the ones who made the complaint to the police to begin with. So we know where this is coming from. This is entirely politically motivated, essentially by supporters of a country that is carrying out the greatest genocide that we've seen in modern times.
Do you think charging Marieha Hussain will deter protesters and people in general from expressing their thoughts and having free speech?
Well, we can see one thing is that people are being arrested across the board for affirmative action on Palestine, people being arrested. Journalists have been arrested in the past couple of weeks in relation to their activism on Palestine. So again, it seems, and it's unfortunate, that Britain is carrying out, whilst it may be arguable whether some of these break the law or not. What's not arguable is that Israel has been accused of genocide at the International Criminal Court, primarily by South Africa, but also who's added their names to those cases? Turkey, Belgium, Ireland, who are all NATO allies. So this is far, far serious. As I said earlier on, that even Britain has cut the exports of 30 arms licenses to Israel. Why would they do that? Because they're afraid they could be charged with supporting a government involved in genocide. So in terms of activism across, they may be able to stop little people, individual people like Marieha Hussain, a teacher, or students, but they cannot stop the movement that has now literally come out of the bag, where nations around the world are saying things far more profound than Marieha Hussain said.